Hamas hands over US-Israeli hostage as part of efforts towards ceasefire. Netherlands, Australia urged Russia to begin MH17 incident talks. Good afternoon and Salam Malaysia Madani. I'm SAHIH and you're watching World Today. The armed wing of Palestinian group Hamas handed over a US-Israeli hostage held in Gaza since October 2023 on Monday. Hamas said in a statement that the release was made following contacts with the US administration as part of the efforts undertaken by mediators to achieve a ceasefire. Alexander's release comes a day after Hamas revealed it was engaged in direct talks with Washington towards a Gaza ceasefire. Alexander was the last living hostage in Gaza with American citizenship. His release came with Trump heading for Saudi Arabia on the first leg of a regional tour. Netanyahu said negotiations for a possible deal to secure the release of all hostages will continue under fire during preparations for an intensification of the fighting. Ahead of Alexander's release, a Hamas source said the mediators informed the group that Israel would halt military operations for the handover of the 21-year-old soldier. The pause offered a much-needed respite for residents of the war-battered territory. Gaza Civil Defense Agency earlier reported at least 10 killed in an overnight Israeli strike on a school housing displaced people. Rights groups and NGOs are dragging the UK government to court on Tuesday, accusing it of breaching international law by supplying fighter jet parts to Israel amid the war in Gaza. Supported by Amnesty, Human Rights Watch, Oxfam and others, the Palestinian Rights Association Al-Haq is seeking to stop the government's export of UK-made components for Lockheed Martin F-35 fighter jets. Israel has used the American warplanes to devastating effect in Gaza and the West Bank, and the head of Amnesty UK said Britain had failed to uphold its legal obligation to prevent genocide. According to Oxfam, the plane's refueling probe, laser targeting system, tires, rear fuselage, fan propulsion system and ejector seat are all made in Britain. It is not clear when a decision could be made following the 4-day hearing at London's High Court, the latest stage in a long-running legal battle. Lawyers for the Global Action Legal Network, GLAN, have said they launched this case soon after Israel's assault on Gaza was triggered by the 7 October 2023 Hamas-led attacks. The lawyer said the UK government had decided in December 2023 and April and May 2024 to continue arms sales to Israel before in September 2024. The new Labour government suspended around 30 licenses following a review of Israel's compliance with international humanitarian law, but the partial ban did not cover British-made parts for the advanced F-35 stealth fighter jets. Violent clashes between rival armed groups rocked the Libyan capital Tripoli on Monday night, with media reporting that the leader of an armed faction was killed. Libyan television channel Al Ahra and news site Al Wasat reported the death of Abdul Ghani Al-Kikli, leader of the support and stability apparatus and influential armed group based in South Tripoli. The Interior Ministry of the National Unity Government in Tripoli urged in a statement all citizens to stay at home for their safety. Local media said clashes broke out in the southern suburbs between armed groups from Tripoli and rivals from Misrata, a major port city 200 km east of the capital. Libya is struggling to recover from years of unrest following a 2011 revolt that led to the fall of the late dictator Muammar Gaddafi. It is currently divided between a UN-recognized government in Tripoli and a rival administration in the east controlled by the Haftar family. Despite relative calm in recent years, clashes periodically break out between armed groups vying for territory. In August 2023, fighting between two powerful armed groups in Tripoli left 55 dead. Several districts of the capital and its suburbs announced that schools would be closed on Tuesday until further notice. The Netherlands and Australia are urging the International Civil Aviation Organization ICAO Council to press Russia to begin negotiations regarding the 2014 shooting down of Malaysia Airlines flight MH17. The government are requesting the ICAO Council to impose an obligation on the Russian Federation to initiate negotiations with the Netherlands and Australia on this matter and to oversee the process. In June 2024, Russia withdrew from ICAO proceedings related to the dispute with Australia and the Netherlands, citing that the organisation lacked jurisdiction over what it described as a fabricated allegations. The Russian Ministry of Foreign Affairs reiterated its position that it does not recognise ICAO's jurisdiction over the matter nor any decision made thereafter. ICAO is a specialised agency of the United Nations, has 193 member states. Malaysia Airlines flight MH17 en route from Amsterdam to Kuala Lumpur was shut down over the Donetsk region of Ukraine on 17 July 2014, killing all 298 people on board. In November 2022, Dutch judges convicted 3 men in absentia of murder for their role in the attack. The India-Pakistan tensions have recorded nearly 100 deaths within 7 days of the conflict erupting. Islamabad claims that dozens of civilians were killed in cross-border attacks by India. During the conflict, the Pakistani military claimed to have shot down 5 Indian fighter jets. Meanwhile, New Delhi reported dozens of deaths as a result of Pakistan's retaliatory attacks. The Indian military also claimed to have destroyed 9 camps in Pakistan. The conflict, which had been escalating, slightly eased after both sides agreed to a ceasefire on Saturday. The attacks occurred 2 weeks after India accused Pakistan of supporting a militant assault in Indian administered Kashmir, an allegation Islamabad has denied. This incident between the two South Asian nuclear powers is described as the worst in 2 decades. New Delhi reopened airports on Monday after India and Pakistan agreed to a ceasefire that paused days of intense fighting last week. The step was taken following a ceasefire agreement between the two countries reached on Saturday. On Monday, India reopened 32 airports it had shut down during the clashes, with the Airports Authority of India saying in a statement they were available for civil operations. Some schools remain closed.
लास्ट 5 दिन से जो गवर्नमेंट ने 32 एयरपोर्ट बंद किए थे, जो बॉर्डर का साइड के एयरपोर्ट थे, तो उसमें से भुज का भी एक एयरपोर्ट है जो एयरफोर्स के अंडर में है। और ये एयरपोर्ट अभी आज सुबह न्यूज़ मिले है कि आज सुबह 10:30 से सब एयरपोर्ट ओपन कर रहे हैं। और उसके रिगार्डिंग जो ये एयरपोर्ट पे जो कंपनियों की फ़्लाइटें आ रही है, टोटल भुज में 5 फ़्लाइट आ रही है, 3 बॉम्बे की है, एक अहमदाबाद की है और एक दिल्ली की है। वो हमारे हिसाब से और जो हमने माहिती ली है उसके हिसाब से ये 2 दिन के बाद सब स्टार्ट हो जाएंगी और ये काफ़ी खुशी के समाचार है।
The closure of these airports across northern and western parts of the country was announced after a military conflict that began last week between the two neighbours. A mayoral candidate in the eastern Mexican state of Veracruz was killed on Tuesday when she was greeting supporters after an election rally. Criminals on motorcycles opened fire as the ruling party, Morena's candidate for Texi-Tepec local government, Yesenia Lara Gutierrez, was talking to supporters after a campaign event. 3 more people were killed and 3 others were injured in the attack. Lara Gutierrez had live-streamed part of the event on her Facebook account. However, the live stream ended abruptly as the attack began, capturing people fleeing from the gunfire. According to the Mexican media, President Claudia Sheinbaum said on Tuesday that the motive was still unknown. Mexico has grappled with electoral violence in recent years, with the 2024 presidential election being one of the bloodiest so far, with at least 39 candidates assassinated. Up next, China and US announced tariff modification measures. Stay with us. China and the United States announced on Monday a series of tariff modification measures aimed at easing trade tensions between the world's 2 largest economies. In a joint statement released on the same day, both sides said they will take a number of actions by Wednesday. The decision followed a two-day China-US high-level meeting on economic and trade affairs in Geneva, Switzerland, during which the two sides conducted candid, in-depth and constructive communication on implementing the important consensus reached during the phone call between Chinese President Xi Jinping and US President Donald Trump in January. The United States will modify the application of the additional ad valorem rate of duty on articles of China by suspending 24 percentage points of the rate for an initial period of 90 days while retaining the remaining ad valorem rate of 10% on those articles pursuant to the terms of the said order. It will also remove the modified additional ad valorem rates of duty on those articles totaling 91 percentage points imposed by executive order on April 2025. China will modify accordingly the application of the additional ad valorem rate of duty by suspending 24 percentage points of that rate for an initial period of 90 days while retaining the remaining additional ad valorem rate of 10% on those articles. China will remove the modified additional ad valorem rates of duty on those articles totaling 91 percentage points. It will also adopt all necessary administrative measures to suspend or remove the non-tariff countermeasures taken against the United States since 2nd April 2025. The global stock market surged on Monday after the US and China agreed to slash steep tariff for at least 90 days, tapping the brakes on a trade war between the world's two biggest economies that had fed fears of a global recession. Financial markets cheered the reprieve in a conflict that had brought nearly $600 billion in two-way trade to a standstill, disrupting supply chains and triggering layoffs. Wall Street stocks finished sharply higher, with the S&P 500 closing at its highest level since the 3rd of March and the tech-heavy Nasdaq Composite recording its highest close since 28th February. The dollar rose while safe haven gold prices fell as the news eased, but did not erase concerns that Trump's trade war could crater the global economy. Under the temporary truce, the US will cut extra tariff it imposed on Chinese imports last month from 145% to 30% for the next 3 months. The two sides said while Chinese duties on US imports will fall to 10% from 125%. In addition to the tariff reductions, China agreed to lift export countermeasures issued after 2nd of April, including restrictions on rare earth minerals and magnets used widely in high-tech manufacturing. Japan's public broadcaster NHK reported on Monday Nissan Motor will additionally slash more than 10,000 jobs globally, bringing the total cuts, including previously announced layoff, to about 20,000 or 15% of its workforce. Nissan, which had more than 133,000 employees as of March last year, had already been looking to slash 9,000 jobs and reduce global capacity by 20% as part of its restructuring plans. The struggling Japanese automaker warned last month it would likely book a record $4.74 billion to $5.08 billion net loss in the financial year that ended in March due to impairment charges. Japan's third biggest automaker is set to announce its full-year results on Tuesday. Nissan is looking to make its business leaner and more resilient after doing poorly in its top market, the United States, where its performance suffered heavily from a lack of hybrids and an aging lineup. It is also struggling in China, where it is looking to stop a punishing sales slide with the launch of some 10 new vehicles in the coming years. Its weak performance forced it to cut its profit outlook 4 times for the financial year that just ended. Taiwan on Monday test-fired for the first time a new US-supplied rocket system that has been widely used by Ukraine against Russia and could be deployed to hit targets in China if there is a war with Taiwan. Taiwan bought 29 of Lockheed Martin's precision weapon high-mobility artillery rocket systems, or HIMARS, with the first batch of 11 received last year and the remaining set to arrive by next year. Officer Ho Xiang-yi told reporters that US personnel from the manufacturer were at the site to deal with any problem that arose.
藉由此次的火箭弹射击，向国人展现我国军官兵保卫国家安全、守护美好家园的决心。
HIMARS is one of the Ukraine's main strike system, and it has been used multiple times during the war with Russia. The United States is Taiwan's most important arms supplier, despite the lack of formal diplomatic ties. Taiwan has faced increased military pressure from China, including several rounds of war games, as Beijing seeks to assert its sovereignty claims over the island. Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum said on Monday that her nation did not agree with the U.S. decision to suspend Mexican imports of cattle, horses and bison over the presence of the New World scream worm, adding that Mexico had shown collaboration in eradicating the pest.
Entonces no estamos de acuerdo con esta medida. Habló el secretario Verdegué con la secretaria de Agricultura de Estados Unidos. Se planteó que van a ser 15 días para poder seguir trabajando y esperamos que muy pronto se levante esta medida.
The president added that she hoped the suspension would not represent a significant economic hit to Mexico, given the assumption that it should last 15 days. The US and Mexico had reached an agreement last month on the handling of the damaging pest, which can infest livestock and wildlife and carry maggots that burrow into the skin of living animals, causing serious and often fatal damage. On Sunday, U.S. Agriculture Secretary Brooke Rollins said she was suspending such imports through the southern U.S. border, with her agency adding the suspension would be in place on a month-by-month basis. A volcano in the central Philippines erupted early Tuesday morning, sending a massive grey plume of ash up about 3 kilometers into the sky and launching ballistic projectiles. A level 3 alert out of a scale of 5 put in place during an eruption in December 2034 remained unchanged on Tuesday, as officials highlighted an existing 6-kilometer evacuation radius. The Philippine Institute of Volcanology and Seismology said in a statement, the eruption lasted 5 minutes. The eruption generated a greyish, voluminous plume that rose approximately 3 kilometers above the vent before drifting to the general west. It added large ballistic fragments were also observed to have been thrown around the crater within a few hundred meters and caused burning of vegetation near the volcano summit. The agency warned there were increased chances of short-lived, moderately explosive eruptions that could generate life-threatening volcanic hazards. Kanluan volcano, one of the 24 active volcanoes in the Southeast Asian nation, had several eruptions in the past century, the most recent of which happened last month. Elsewhere, South Korea is actively developing its halal tourism sector through infrastructure improvements, government initiatives and industry collaborations. To ensure that Muslim tourists feel welcome and respected, South Korea's government through Seoul Tourism Organization, STO, has launched a few initiatives in the tourism and hospitality industry. STO President and CEO Kim Yeon-kil said the organization has launched a series of campaigns that highlight halal food, prayer facilities, halal-friendly places of attraction and cultural experiences that cater to Muslim tourists.
네, 서울관광재단은 관련 기관과 함께 무슬림 관광객 유치를 위해 다양한 할랄 관광 인프라 구축 및 홍보 활동을 전개하고 있습니다. 살람 서울 앰버서더 프로그램을 통해 말레이시아, 인도네시아, 중동 등지 출신의 인플루언서들이 서울의 할랄 인프라, 할랄 음식점, 기도실 등 다양한 체험을 하고 있고 SNS를 통해 홍보하는 활동을 진행하고 있습니다. 그밖에 할랄 식당, 기도실, 이슬람 센터 등 관련 인프라 확충과 더불어 현지 언어로 된 안내자료 제공, 무슬림 관광객 맞춤 콘텐츠 제작 등도 강화하고 있습니다. 이러한 노력은 동남아 및 중동 무슬림 관광객의 서울 방문 증가와 재방문을 유도하는 데 중요한 역할을 하고 있습니다.
He made this remark at a program Seoul, My Seoul in Kuala Lumpur recently. According to the Korea Tourism Organization, the number of Muslim tourists who visited Korea in 2023 total 985,858, and the number continues to grow steadily. Halal tourism is a vital and expanding component of South Korea's economy, contributing to increased tourism revenue, job creation, and cultural exchange. In sports, Ancelotti to take up Brazilian coach job once season ends. Stay tuned. Kicking off our sports segment this afternoon, Al Nassr Trump relegation batters Al Aqdoud 9-0 in the Saudi Pro League on Monday at the Prince Hatil bin Abdulaziz Sports City in Najran. Sadio Mane bagged 4 goals where John Duran grabbed a brace for the visitors against the 10 men of Al Aqdoud. With star forward Cristiano Ronaldo rested, Al Nassr surpassed their previous biggest victory margin by a goal, battering their 8-0 win in the league away to Abha in April 2024. Al Nassr climbed up to third in the standings on 63 points and sit 1 clear of third place Al Qasiyah and 2 ahead of Al Ahli in 5th in the race for Champions League football next season with 2 matches remaining. Al Aqdoud, who were already trailing 4-0 when Brazilian defender Paulo Vitor was sent off at the start of the second half, sit in 17th on 28 points, 4 from safety. Stefano Pioli decided to leave 5-time Ballon d'Or winner Cristiano Ronaldo out of his squad. Real Madrid coach Carlo Ancelotti will leave the club at the end of the season to take charge of the Brazil national team. The 65-year-old Italian will become Brazil's first foreign coach since 1965, with Xabi Alonso set to be appointed as the new Real Madrid boss after confirming his exit from Bayern Leverkusen last week. Ancelotti will be the 4th non-Brazilian to coach Brazil. The last was Argentine Filippo Nunes, who was in charge for 1 game 60 years ago. Brazil sacked Dorival Jr. after a 4-1 thrashing by Argentina in March and are 4th in the South American qualifying table for the tournament in the United States, Mexico and Canada. Record 5-time World Cup winners Brazil last won the trophy in 2002, enduring more than 2 decades of disappointment since then. Rodriguez had tried to lure Ancelotti to Brazil 2 years ago after Tite stood down as coach following a quarter-final exit at the 2022 World Cup in Qatar. That bid fell apart in December 2023 when Ancelotti extended his contract with Madrid, forcing Brazil to turn to Dorival after the team struggled under Fernando Diniz in his brief spell at the helm. 18 months on from Dorival's appointment, Ancelotti leaves Madrid with a year left on his contract as one of the club's most successful managers, winning 15 trophies across 2 spells with Los Blancos, including a La Liga and Champions League double last season. Real Madrid fans thanked Carlo Ancelotti on Monday for all the silverware after the Brazilian FA CBF confirmed he will become their manager at the end of the season. Ancelotti has enjoyed 4 hugely successful years in his second tenure at the Spanish Giants, but they are set to finish this season without a trophy.
Yo creo que Ancelotti lo ha hecho muy bien en estos años que ha estado, se han ganado muchos títulos y tal, pero como todo empieza, todo tiene un final y yo creo que ya es hora de darle una nueva etapa al Madrid. Yo creo que Xabi Alonso, vamos, lo va a hacer espectacular. Ya hemos visto cómo ha jugado en la selección y lo que va a hacer en el Real Madrid posiblemente va a ser historia.
I think that is crazy because, I mean, Real Madrid is such a big culture in itself. I think it's wild for the coach to leave to go to another team. I think it'll affect this team significantly, but it'll be interesting to see what comes of it.
Most of the fans visiting the Santiago Bernabeu said they would like to see former Spain midfielder Xabi Alonso as their new coach. Spanish media reported that Alonso is set to sign a 3-year deal when he leaves Bayern Leverkusen at the end of this season. Ange Postecoglou said on Monday that victory in the Europa League final between Tottenham Hotspur and Manchester United would change the way the club are looked at. Despite Tottenham being 17 and Manchester United 16 in the Premier League standings, the winner in Bilbao will be rewarded with a spot in next season's Champions League. The Australian said that winning a trophy would change the way Tottenham were perceived both inside and outside the club.
When you look at the historical backdrop of this club and what it's sort of been on for the last 20-odd years, I feel like it could be a turning point in terms of the way the club is perceived, but also more how it perceives itself, which is, I think, the biggest thing.
Tottenham's form in Europe this season has been in a stark contrast to their Premier League campaign in which they have lost 20 times in 36 matches. In the Europa League, they have won 9 of their 14 matches, drawn 3 and lost just 2. On Sunday, Spurs were beaten 2-0 at home by Crystal Palace, their 20th league loss of the season, a club record in the Premier League era. They have also lost 24 matches across all competitions, their second most behind the 25 defeats they suffered in the 1991-1992 season. There was some good news for Postecoglou, however, with the return to action of club captain Son Heung-min, who he hopes will be able to play in Spain. In tennis, Jannik Sinner is gearing up for the first true test of his pre-Roland Garros form after cruising into the last 16 of the Italian Open on Monday. World number 1 Sinner continued his Foro Italico comeback from a 3-month doping ban by dealing with lucky loser Jasper de Jong 6-4, 6-2 and setting up a clash with Argentina's Francisco Cerundolo on Tuesday. Sinner was knocked out in the last 16 by Cerundolo the last time he played here in 2023, and he's under no illusions that the 17th seed will be a big step up after low-ranked opponents in his first 2 matches. The over 10,000 fans cram into the centre court stands hope Sinner can end a 49-year wait for an Italian winner of the men's tournament in the capital. But Monday's win was in reality another warm-up for the 23-year-old's stated objective of arriving at the French Open in top form. De Jong, ranked at the career high 93rd in the world, offered some resistance in a low-key contest in which Sinner showed signs of rustiness. Sinner threw away a 3-game lead when 4-1 up in the first set before eventually going ahead in the match, but he saw out the contest with little fuss helped in part by De Jong hurting his wrist in a fall in the 4th game of the second set. Aryna Sabalenka's bid for a first Rome title continued with a straight sets win over Marta Kostyuk. Sabalenka again had to fight to beat Kostyuk 6-1, 7-6 in the day's final match, taking just half an hour to win the first set, but then being truly tested before sealing a spot in the women's last 8. Kostyuk engaged Sabalenka in a series of exciting rallies and pushed Sabalenka with the 20-point game 7 of the second set, a particular high point of their battle. World number 1 Sabalenka has reached the final of the last 4 tournaments, winning in both Miami and Madrid, and is favourite at the Foro Italico following the early elimination of reigning champion Iga Swiatek on Saturday. Sabalenka will face 8th seed Qin Wen Zheng next with the 3rd 1000 series crown of the season, just before the tennis World G comes to Paris for the 2nd Grand Slam of the year. And that wraps up our bulletin this afternoon. In the top story today, Hamas hands over US-Israeli hostage as part of efforts towards ceasefire. Do join us again this evening at 8:30 p.m. on TV1 and Saluran Berita RTM for more. Or you can stream us online on RTM Click's website and mobile app. Till then, I'm SAHIH from the river to the sea. Paul's time will be free. Goodbye for now.